Thank you. Mr. President, as you know, like I do, we had a terrible tragedy that occurred last week. I don't think that it's quite understood by people who Charlie's life didn't affect what his death meant to all of us. Not only is it that a 31-year-old died, which of course would be tragic to anybody, but to see him publicly assassinated, gunned down, where his death is captured on video after video after video. You look at that, you think, where's the humanity? I think one of the things that's most important to understand is that there was a private person named Charlie Kirk. He wasn't just the leader of an incredible movement that we know and are familiar with, Turning Point USA. He was a son, he was a father, he was a husband. I got to know Charlie about 13 years ago. I was in my office in Cleveland, Ohio, and my receptionist said to me, "There's a young man here to see you. He wants to talk about an idea he has." Now in my business, typically I'm seeing people who are interested in purchasing automobiles from one of my dealerships. I said, "Well, who is this guy?" And my office is right in the showroom. I said, "Well, come on in my office." And Charlie Kirk shared with me a vision that he had. And he had built out the entire concept of what we know as Turning Point USA in his head. He visualized hundreds of chapters in every major college and university throughout America where students could actually debate ideas. It wasn't about everybody had to have one point of view or a different point of view, but they could actually discuss an idea in a collaborative way, not with hatred, not with animosity, but rather with the idea that people would listen to each other. Now, this is a time over a decade ago where we didn't understand the extent of the indoctrination that was going on in our colleges and universities, but I was so impressed by that young man's vision, by his conviction, by his energy, by his charm, that I happily wrote him what he thought was a big check. By today's dollars, it was definitely not. And I referred a few friends to him. He was very excited, stayed in touch during the years. Lo and behold, he builds this incredible organization. I end up running for Senate. He activated that group, helped me tremendously in Ohio. Now, if you look at what he did, I'm certain for you, Mr. President, the same way for me, the way young people really took to his message. They want to have a voice in the future of our country. And that's what Charlie wanted for them. Now, I will tell you, it's extremely sad, quite disappointing to see some of the reactions online, people actively cheering that a 31-year-old husband, father, and son would die, the pejoratives used against them, comparing Nazism and fascism, a stain on human history that shouldn't be compared, quite frankly, with anything. I think it's fair to say that Hitler and Nazis should have a special dark place in history and not compared with anyone or anything. Because you see, when you do that, you're inviting people, crazy people, to take actions in their own hands, like what we saw tragically in Utah. So I hope what comes out of what we just went through is that colleges and universities all over America heed Charlie's call. Let's have our American colleges and universities be the one place where freedom of speech is respected, where people can debate ideas, and even if we don't agree. For example, Madam President, you and I may not agree that Ohio State University is the best college football team in America. You may have a different point of view. It's wrong. I know it's wrong, but sadly, you may have a different idea. But we could be friends. We can have a dinner together. We don't have to be mad at each other because we have a different points of view. And of course, I'm being flippant because there's more difficult conversations for us to have. But it should never go to hatred. Now, look, I don't want to make this remark about partisan politics, but let me just say to my Democrat colleagues, when you say we're at war and you must do anything you can to make certain that we protect our democracy, that is a bat signal to crazy people. When a Democrat leader says that President Trump is Hitler or a Nazi, it's a bat signal to crazy people. When the media, for example, in my state, the Cincinnati Enquirer, said that after President Trump was almost assassinated, much like Charlie was, that he brought it on himself, quote unquote. That sends a message to crazy people. When the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the largest newspaper in Ohio, analogizes J.D. Vance, our great vice president, your friend, my friend, who we know personally, and says that he's a Nazi sympathizer, that he reminds the editor of what it must have been like to be with Nazis in the 30s. Sends a bat signal to crazy people. It puts us all in danger. That's unacceptable. We can have vigorous debates. In fact, I would say we should have more vigorous debates on the floor. In fact, when we're doing confirmations for nominees, I welcome the Democrats to come out here and defend their position as to why they're not going to confirm somebody. But for 81 out of 100+ nominees, they don't even bother to debate. And for the ones that they do, it's 2 minutes of debate. Let's have more vigorous debates, but let's do it respectfully. Let's do it from a point of view of, this is what I believe, tell me what your beliefs are, not just yelling at the presiding officer when nobody else is on the floor. That's not a debate. That's trying to get a 30-second clip on social media. That's not what this institution should represent. This should be like those college campuses, a place for free exchange of ideas. Maybe sometimes, although I find it hard to believe, that my colleagues could make a point that may change some minds on this side. It would be great to see that. And I hope that when we make points that they listen. And that's what Charlie wanted. What I'd like to do now is ask unanimous consent that the Senate observe a moment of silence in remembrance of Charlie Kirk, Erica Kirk, and their 2 young children who had to ask their mom when their dad was going to come home. And understand that we had a great tragedy. So, Madam President, I ask for unanimous consent to have that moment of silence.
Without objection.
I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsor-Brooks.